The Penguin has now had its season finale wrapped up, solidifying itself as possibly one of the best comic book movie television shows ever.
Come here. Look at this. This stupid motherfucker. He's just begging to be got.
At least to some people, but what we're going to be doing here is I'm not only going to be giving you my spoiler thoughts on the entire 8-episode run, the highs and very little lows of the show, but also how the Penguin show will lead us right into Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2. Episode 8 of The Penguin really puts some puzzle pieces together on what could be happening in the second Batman movie, while also still keeping us very much in the dark of what is even happening in that film, because I don't think we're anywhere close to figuring out who the main villain of the Batman Part 2 is. But as I go through all of this, I want to hear your guys' opinions. What did you think of the Penguin as a whole? Did it surpass your expectations? Were you underwhelmed with the show? Your theories and predictions based on what was set up in the finale of the Penguin, would love to hear it all down below. But okay, getting on to my spoilery thoughts of the show, I really only have 2 negative comments of the show while praising the entire rest of it. My first one came immediately when I saw the first episode, and I just noticed that it was missing that Matt Reeves directed touch, complemented nicely by that Greg Fraser cinematography, and that's where I started to fear that maybe it was a bad idea to do this Penguin series, because, well, we saw what Marvel has gotten themselves into by oversaturating their universe, creating show after show, giving it to whatever character left and right. Sometimes it turns out good, other times it is a disaster, and it just kind of ruins some of the mystery in the MCU. In the first episode, looking at Gotham in the daylight and even the driving sequences with the clear green screen on the car window, I thought the show would almost cheapen my love of the Matt Reeves world, but as it continued on, the story really brought it up to the level of what I expect from this universe. The characters were put first, and once that was in place, I completely forgot that the show doesn't look exactly like the movie. And my other negative, that is a nitpick, but I still think kind of an important one, is the lack of mention of the Batman. You know, they made it very clear before the show started, Matt Reeves said it, that they tried finding a way to fit Batman physically in the show, but his presence is just so large it would have taken away from the Penguin. And you know what? I respect them, and they stayed true to that. They really didn't have the Batman show up at all. But if you go back to the opening of the Batman, although we're only in his second year, it was made clear his presence and fear looms over the criminals of Gotham, and the Penguin was a show about the criminals of Gotham, and rarely was there ever a mention of, hey, we got to get out of here before the Bat shows up. I was like, hey, I don't want any trouble. We got guys in costumes now coming for us. And so I kind of would have just liked that a little bit, just a mention that there's a criminal scared that the Batman could show up at any moment. And there were a lot of things that happened, explosions, big deaths of notable crime families in Gotham. And well, you would think Batman might show up for one or two of those, and they didn't. But again, those were my only negatives, and that stuff doesn't even come close to the comparisons of the positives with the show. Bring me to the things I loved about this show, starting off with Colin Farrell's The Penguin. This guy absolutely disappears in that makeup, not just physically, but his performance. I have a hard time believing this actor is the same person portraying the Penguin, because he just does such a great job with it. I fell in love with Matt Reeves' interpretation from the Penguin from the first interaction Batman had with him in the movie, where we got this line.
Don't let me hurt you. You better watch it. You know my reputation.
Yeah, I do. Do you?
Making it very clear this version of the Penguin is a laughingstock. He might have a little nightclub and some henchmen here and there, but overall, other criminals laugh at him. His reputation is a joke. And so what Matt Reeves and team did, building off that reputation, that joke, starting off as a driver for the Falcones and then weaseling his way up to the ranks. He's not the Penguin. This guy is the Weasel, was such a treat to watch. And you know, I kind of sometimes hate the cliche of showing us the younger version of a notable villain, because you gotta admit, little Penguin might as well be the little Rizzler. He was all cute and funny. Like, that accent?
Your balls have barely dropped, and you're gonna take care of me.
Of course I'm gonna take care of you. I'd do anything for you.
I want a kid with that accent. But the Penguin show does what other villain solo projects forget to do, and is remind your audience this is a villain. You can sympathize with him, you can understand where he's coming from, you can feel bad for his backstory, but at the end of the day, don't forget, this is the bad guy. And so seeing how needy he was about getting the approval of his mom to where he goes and kills his brothers, having that almost be his ultimate motivator, it doesn't make the Penguin that much different from Batman. Batman's ultimate motivator in life is the death of his parent and trying to avenge what he lost. And for the Penguin to also have that same similar motive throughout the show, I thought was a nice creepy parallel. Just really smart stuff with the Penguin. I could not have been happier with that, but it was the side characters that also made this show great. Sofia Falcone, I was like curious where they were going with that, what they were planning to do. They really built her up early on that she was this hangman and we should fear her. I definitely felt the fear for her, but I was not expecting the gut punch of a backstory that she was betrayed by her own father, Carmine Falcone, sent to Arkham. And this is also where the show highlights the better parts of the Matt Reeves universe that we don't get to see or spend all that much time with in the movies, because those segments of seeing what Arkham is like, dude, that is not a rehabilitation center. No wonder these villains go to Arkham and come out worse than before. It is a torture center, and you go from rooting for the Penguin to rooting for Sofia Falcone. Every time she got her revenge on her family from taking them out with a gas leak or shooting one of the members right in front of the other crime bosses, I was clapping for my girl Sofia Falcone. When we move on to Vic, he's probably the character I was most hesitant with. You know, seeing the Penguin having his own nightclub and he had a bunch of henchmen and people working for him, to then going at the beginning of this show where he had nobody under his belt and had to rely on this kid that was about to steal his tires, I just didn't know what to make of it. But as it goes on, it really was a great example of the way Gotham corrupts, swallows you, and then spits you out. And I don't just mean that with the Penguin, because although I mentioned earlier the show wasn't great at like mentioning the Batman and his fearing presence on criminals, we did get the perspective of the Riddler's flooding attack on Gotham from Vic's point of view, and the way that got rid of his family, setting up his own motivation, how it's hurt Gotham. So I do like how, although Batman wasn't mentioned, the aftermath of what Riddler did actually did affect the people of Gotham. I thought that was really cool. But as it was continuing on, I was seeing how much Vic was really being loyal to Penguin, and vice versa. I thought Penguin finally had somebody that saw him for who he was, looked up to him, and was always supporting him.
You gave people jobs in Crown Point. You got the power back on. Yeah. All right? Nobody else did that. Nobody even tried.
My prediction was that Vic would die along with maybe Penguin's mom, and that would be the thing to ultimately turn Oz completely cold. I had no idea Oz would be the one himself to kill Vic with his own hands. You freaking monster, Penguin. I hate you, but I love that the show did that. It is that reminder we need. This is a bad dude. This is a messed up dude who hires a lady of the night to dress up like his mom so he can tell him how proud and how much she loves him. This guy is psychotic. And again, that's only just one of the things, because like the way he leaves his mom in this vegetative state looking over the city of Gotham, one of the wishes the mom always wanted to have is to be put into a penthouse. There was a scene earlier in the season where she says, if I ever get that way, you kill me, Oz. You get rid of me. I do not want to be living that way. And while some might think, oh, it's sweet, you know, Penguin just can't kill his mom. He still loves her no matter what and all that stuff. So he's gonna let her live, even if she's in this vegetative state that is hurting her. I don't think the Penguin was keeping her alive out of love or care for her, because at this point, we found out the mom knew all along that Penguin killed his brothers, the children of the mom. She was at one point even just gonna hand the Penguin over as a kid to a crime boss to get rid of him. But of course, being the smooth talker young little Rizzler Penguin is, he saved his own life without even knowing it. But it was his mom stabbing him and saying how much she's always hated him. I think this is the Penguin's way of getting back at his mom while also being able to kind of get what he wants. Like, that is some crazy genius level writing right there. So yeah, I could just keep gushing on and on about the things I absolutely loved about the Penguin and how it helped keep the Matt Reeves Batman universe staying strong. But now let's get on to how this finale sets up some of the things that we'll be seeing in the Batman Part 2. One thing is obvious: the Penguin is gonna be running for mayor. He's getting into politics. And the Penguin running for mayor is just like a common trope that happens in so many different forms of media. Whether it's in Tim Burton's Batman Returns, the Gotham TV series with that Penguin, in the comic books, and also in the Adam West Batman 66 series that we know Matt Reeves actually really loves and has taken a lot of inspiration from. But there's a great shot and foreshadowing of this when he's at the courthouse giving some information to a councilman that'll be his entryway into politics, where he also gets told he needs to dress more clean, eventually agreeing to that, putting on a nice fancy suit and top hat. I was waiting for the monocle and the little cigarette, but okay, we'll wait for that. But on the ground floor, he looks up and sees the current mayor, Bella Real, who made brief appearances in the Batman. He's looking up at her, admiring and wanting that position. You even see the word mayor right behind her. So like, that's just, again, a good setup. Penguin is starting at the bottom and he sees his prize at the top. He's done it once before with the crime empire. He's gonna do it now with the position of mayor. And you know, this interpretation of the Penguin, I think, is built perfectly for that. They've established throughout this entire show, he is a smooth talker. You get a mic in front of him, the guy can literally talk himself out of getting killed. So imagine how powerful he's gonna be to the people of Gotham once he starts talking sweet to them and promising things. We also have to look at the setting and time of year, because there was episodes leading up where Gotham was starting to snow and get cold. Matt Reeves did mention that the Penguin series ends right before Christmas and New Year's. Not getting to those holidays yet, but it's looking like that'll be where we start off with the Batman Part 2, is in winter around the holiday season, which I think is a perfect time for that, because who doesn't want to see this Batman walking around snow? Another small tease of things that are happening in Gotham that could be important in the Batman Part 2 is that we do get a mention that Bella Real, the current mayor, is putting together an anti-crime task force. This could mean one of two things. Batman the Vigilante could be put some pressure on, because just like criminals in Gotham, they probably don't want a guy in a suit taking care of those criminals for them. So it could be an awkward situation for Gordon, who loves to work with Batman, maybe having to make that relationship more private than it is. But also other people think that this could be our introduction to Harvey Dent, because who else would be a good leader for that task force than a lawyer putting away all these criminals of Gotham? So that's something that gets set up, but also something I'm not sure will be touched upon in the Batman Part 2, but will be a part of the ever-expanding universe, because we know there's more spin-offs to come. One character that was left alive but was given a fate worse than death, Sofia Falcone, who returns to Arkham. Penguin again? You maniacal crazy man, just let Sofia die. When she's at Arkham, she gets handed a letter that is actually from Selina Kyle, her half-sister, because we did learn in the Batman that Selina Kyle is the child of Carmine Falcone, and whatever Selina says, it makes Sofia happy. I'm gotta imagine she's thanking her and was very proud of her, because she knows what she did gassing up the entire Falcone family in that mansion and burning it down. Whether Selina will be the one to help her get out of Arkham and they team up and we have a show between them two, I wouldn't mind that. Maybe that could be interesting. Or they're characters that play roles in the actual Batman movie, although I think them getting a show or something spin-off-y is more likely. But those were really our biggest clues. Other than that, I am still so curious, who is the main villain of the Batman Part 2? Because it's not going to be Penguin. He will be a player in it and will maybe be a more bigger focus in the third movie, because Colin Farrell in a recent interview did say he signed up for 3 movies and that he's also been told he has about 5 to 6 scenes in the Batman. With this winter setting, I would love it if it's Mr. Freeze. That would just be the perfect villain, but I think it is more likely they're going to go down the Hush route, just because that was so heavily teased in the last movie. I would love me Mr. Freeze to be out there. I think there's a grounded way you can do some sort of freeze gun that shoots out like liquid nitrogen or something. That's a realistic way to do Mr. Freeze, and we know Matt Reeves only wants to do realistic stuff in his universe. Whatever the case, that final shot of the Penguin showing the bat signal go up after the Penguin has just won. It sucks that we're gonna have to wait at least a minimum of 2 years to go back into this universe, because oh man, I already miss it. Let me know what you guys thought about the Penguin, how you think it sets up the Batman Part 2, what you loved, what you didn't like about the show. Anything and everything, be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.